Okay, so first we're going to start off. I have a material that is actually attached to the windows, this one and then the one parallel to it. And it's just a standard AI standard surface. Now I'm using Maya 2018. If we were in 2017, this would be an AI standard. In 2018, they've combined the AI standard and the AI skin into the AI standard surface. So they've gotten rid of those two and combined a lot of their features into one. So I would use this for a skin texture or material or translucency and subsurface scattering, as well as just a regular standard material now. But if you are in 2017, you're just going to use an AI standard. And all I've done for this particular material, if we go in, let's get to the right one, is you'll notice this is blanked out, and that's because I've set the transmission, which is its transparency, to 1, and that's what's making it invisible. You have to make sure that you do that. So I've set this up so we can actually see through, even though there's nothing outside to see. And we also want to make sure that the room model itself under Arnold is set to not be opaque. And this will make it calculate properly transparencies on that mesh. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Arnold, Lights, and I'm going to add a Skydome light. Now when I do this, you see here is the dome it creates. And I can move it, scale it, whatever I want, just to kind of line that up with the environment. Even if I am outside of it, you're going to see it render in the background. It's going to act that way. So if I were to just do a render right now, we go to Arnold up top, not using the Maya typical renderer, this one, we're actually going to use the Arnold renderer. And then I'm going to turn that on. And we could see it's already starting to calculate lighting coming through this window. But I don't have an image in it right now. So essentially, we're in some sort of a weird place where we're surrounded by white light. Very ethereal, but we want to have something a little bit more accurate. And there's a few other things we're going to need to do to make sure it's accurate. So we're going to start setting that up. But right now we can see that we're at least getting from what we had before more light coming in. And it should be noted that I'm actually rendering this to save on time. I have my test resolution at 50%. And my 100% resolution currently is HD 540. So it's basically doing 480 by 270. And I'm using a lower resolution because it renders faster. At some point, I'm going to drop this down to a 320 by 240, but not just yet. Keep that image, and I'm just going to start keeping these so we can see what the differences are as we start moving forward. This noise is because I haven't refined anything. There's not enough light in there, and I have my settings turned down low. And while I'm setting up my lights, I want to keep that kind of low unless you just have lots of time. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a texture to this light. Now, there are several places that you can go to get your HDR images. There's, let's see, let me just pull this up. I will show you two places that we can go to for freebies, which are really nice. One, HDR environment maps with, so it's hdrmaps.com, and there's a little freebies section. And through here, all you have to do is sign up, and there's a whole bunch of freebies that you can get for different lighting modes, both outdoors and indoors. These are really nice for showing off your environments, and you just have to think about what kind of day you want. And of course, you'll position the sun on that dome to where the main light source is going to be. The second is HDRI Heaven, where you can go in and actually get a bunch of freebies that are on here as well. And not only do they actually show the images, but they also show what they look like when illuminating different surfaces. And you can choose by what you want: outdoor, sky, indoor, etc. High contrast, nighttime, overcast. And my suggestion is to get maybe a few of these to see which one you want to light to the best. Any images that you download, some of these can be really big. You don't have to use the super uber, like ridiculously high, high res one, though it does help your lighting, but it also helps to make your renders much longer. So if you were to pick one, and what you'll see is they range everywhere from a 1 meg to a 278 megabyte file. My suggestion is to stick to the 2K to 4K range for a good amount of detail, nice lighting, but it's also not going to make it ridiculously long in how long it's going to actually render. So one of these should be just fine for what we're doing. So once I've saved the whatever file I'm going to use, and I've put it into my source images folder, I'm going to go to the color of the Skydome, and I'm going to bring in a file. And under the image name, in my source images, I like to kind of separate them. So I have them in a folder called background, where I have a lot of these HDR images put in. Now, when you actually grab one of them and you start rendering it, you also know that Maya will generate a secondary image called a TX. And I can actually just bring that one in, and you notice it switches it to raw. And let's see what happens when we get into here and we update the full scene. And sometimes you actually have to kind of close this up and then reopen it for it to actually calculate properly. Now, if it's giving you grief or if it's not coming through, you can always go back in. Let's see. Yeah, it's just not wanting to update. But I could see my image there. Oh, and this is the other thing. Let's move this and rotate it so that the sun is actually coming through that window. And right now it's acting a little wonky. So what I'm going to do before it goes totally nuts, I'm going to do a save as. Save this out. And make sure that my Let's try switching it back and forth. Software, obviously, we don't want. I'm going to switch you back. Oh, jinkies. There we go. Turn that. Be careful of that. Sometimes you actually have the screenshot selected. And the way that you know that is by the blue bars. And it's very, very easy, as you just saw, for me to actually not realize I have that selected. So now you can see I'm actually getting the update that I want. And we can see the lighting is starting to come through. That's looking actually kind of nice. So that's getting the image. We created a Skydome. Under lights, Skydome. Inside of the color of the Skydome is where we put the HDR image. We dropped it right into here, into the color. And it's from here that I can actually make my adjustments. If I turn down like my gamma, you can see that a little bit better. But it's actually getting more light into here now. And I can adjust the intensity of that Skydome through a few different things. Number one, resolution-wise, if I know it's like a 2K, let me just do 2048. Boom. Oh, excuse me. Why did that come in there? 48. And that'll get more information from it. If I want to increase some of its features on the inside, I would go under the visibility. Oops, hello, new, not 200. Blow up your machine that way. But we could start to actually increase certain things inside of here to help smooth out some of the details. If I want to increase that, I can go under exposure, which is at 0 right now, and watch what happens. You see how it looks now. Let's keep an image. Still at 14 seconds. And I'm going to change my exposure to 1. And you can see it brighten it up a little bit. That was at 0. That's at 1. 0, 1. So we could see it starting to intensify there. Okay. Don't worry about this noise. I'm going to show you something real quick that if you want to test it and see what it looks like without that noise, it just takes longer. Okay. So right now it's taking 14 seconds to render this image, but we see there's a lot of noise. And if I want to start to clean this up is where I'd go into the render settings under Arnold Renderer. And it's the diffuse and typically the specular that's giving you a lot of this noise, and they're defaults. So if I keep it like this, and then I go under the diffuse, and let's say we crank that up to a 10, and I want you to see the difference. Now, two things is going to happen. One is it's going to start to smooth out a lot of that noise. Two is it's going to take longer than 14 seconds. And I'll just pause while it's doing that so you don't have to wait that long. All right, so it's just finished. It went from 14 seconds to 2 minutes and 35 seconds for the same resolution just by changing the diffuse setting to 10. However, let's take a look at the difference here. This was before at a setting of 2. This is at a setting of 10. 14 seconds, 2 minutes and 35, but infinitely better looking, much, 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 much smoother. This is why once you actually get things looking at the low settings the way you want, then you start to crank it up, and I would lower the resolution so it goes faster. The noise that you're seeing now would mean that I'd have to crank up the specular, because that's where we're seeing it, is in the specular, the reflections. But you'll notice, even though it's still a little noisy, most of the diffuse noise has cleared up, and that's what we're going for. So that's the first phase of our setting up our lights. And I'm just going to put this back to a 2. I've saved what the image looks like before or after. And of course, it's going to try to re-render it, and I'm just going to pause that for right now until we go to the next video.